This is the story of a quiet night that turned violent in a neighborhood steps away from one of the world's oldest universities. A young man, newly engaged, a decorated veteran, a student at an Ivy League school, was cut down as he checked on his car. The killing was swift. The killer vanished into the night. For 3 months, investigators chased whispers, surveillance, and digital traces. The arrest that followed would read like a thriller. A man with academic credentials, living under a false name, found in another state with cash, passports, and multiple phones. And in the end, a guilty plea and a sentence that left families and a campus asking, "Why? Stay with us." His name was Kevin Jiang. He was 26 years old, a U.S. Army veteran, a graduate student studying at the Yale School of the Environment, and someone family remembered for his quiet faith and unwillingness to quit on good work. Friends said he loved simple things: fishing, long walks, service to others. In February of 2021, he and his fiancée had just become engaged. That ordinary joy makes the violence that followed feel sharper. A life moving forward, suddenly and senselessly stopped. It was early evening in New Haven, Connecticut. On February 6, 2021, at about 8:30 p.m., Kevin left the apartment he shared with his fiancée. He got into his white Toyota Prius and drove away. Seconds later, a black SUV struck his car from behind, a minor collision on a quiet residential street. Kevin pulled over. He stepped out to check the other vehicle. That moment, the pause between one car and the next, is the moment everything changed. As Kevin moved toward the driver's side, shots rang out. He was struck multiple times at close range. The person inside the SUV fired first, then they stepped out and fired again, finishing the attack. Emergency responders arrived, but the wounds were mortal. Kevin collapsed beside his car. The street was ordinary. The violence was final. At first, police considered several possibilities: road rage, a botched robbery, or a random act of violence. But the manner of the shooting, close range, multiple shots into a collapsed body, suggested something different. The vehicle containing the shooter didn't speed away the way a panicked driver might. Instead, the sequence looked controlled. Collision, threatening maneuver, exit, execution. Detectives began to suspect planning, not chance. Investigators isolated a few key strands. The first was surveillance, cameras on nearby streets and at local businesses that captured blurred images of a black SUV and a person moving through the neighborhood. The second was digital. Phone records, social media, and the tiny footprints people leave when they cross from one city to another. And the third was human. Acquaintances, prior connections, and the vague sense that the shooter may have known the victim's wider circle. As police delved into records, the name Qinxuan Pan surfaced. He was not a random drifter. He was a former researcher and a graduate alumnus of a prestigious technical school, an academic with a resume that included advanced study and work in the sciences. His past, on paper, read like the future of a scholar, but records showed he had been in contact, in the past, with people who connected to Kevin's fiancée during their time at another institution. That link, innocuous in isolation, would become the thread that pulled investigators deeper into motive and method. Once identified as a person of interest, Pan vanished. He did not answer questions. For 3 months, the possibility that he had left the region or the country pulled investigators into an intense search. Local police coordinated with federal authorities. Surveillance footage from multiple states was reviewed. Cell phone pings were traced. Small purchases were tracked for cash withdrawals. With each passing day, the urgency rose. The trail eventually led to Montgomery, Alabama. There, in a modest boarding house, authorities located a man living under an assumed name. When they moved in, they found more than a hidden tenant. They found nearly $20,000 in cash, multiple cell phones, SIM cards, and a foreign passport. That package, the cash, the phones, the false identity, painted a picture of flight and preparation. On May 14, 2021, Authorities arrested Qinxuan Pan. He was taken into custody without the high-speed chase or cinematic confrontation some might have imagined. Instead, he was arrested quietly, booked, photographed, and charged. Prosecutors would later accuse him of murder and unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, among other counts. At the time of arrest, officials disclosed that he had $19,000 in cash, several phones and SIM cards, and a passport, items one might associate with a person prepared to stay invisible. The arrest was a turning point, but it also raised new questions. The killing of a student associated with one of the nation's most storied universities reverberated far beyond the streets of New Haven. News outlets followed each development. Campus communities mourned. Students organized vigils. The question of safety and of what it means when violence touches elite institutions circulated in editorials and in late-night conversations. But the public's desire to understand collided with a privacy-conscious legal process. Not every piece of evidence or motive detail could, or would, be made public. High-profile cases rarely move on a simple, straight track. Court schedules, pandemic slowdowns, motions and legal strategy introduced delays. At one point, a high bail, millions of dollars, was set. Judges, defense attorneys, and prosecutors sparred over evidence access, pre-trial hearings, and what the bounds of public disclosure should be. While many in the public wanted an immediate trial, the wheels of justice turned methodically, and at times slowly. Motive is often the thinnest and most brittle part of a criminal case. Here, public filings and reporting made clear one fact. Investigators saw connections, both digital and interpersonal, between the suspect and the victim's fiancé that dated back to academic circles. But connection is not motive, and statements from the fiancé made in public denied a romantic relationship. Court filings and press reporting suggested the suspect may have had an interest in her years earlier, but whether that interest led to obsession, jealousy, or something else, the public record stopped short of declaring a simple answer. As months became years, the case moved toward resolution. Defense counsel and prosecutors, each evaluating the risks of trial, the strength of evidence, and the wish to bring closure, opened plea negotiations. A guilty plea can reflect many things: an admission of responsibility, a pragmatic choice to avoid the uncertainty of a trial, or part of a negotiated package that secures a certain sentence. On February 29, 2024, prosecutors and defense announced a plea. Qinxuan Pan pleaded guilty to the murder. In April 2024, a judge sentenced Pan to 35 years in prison. The sentence reflected the gravity of a premeditated killing, a life taken in a manner prosecutors described as intentional and devastatingly final. At sentencing, family members read statements the court heard from those who loved Kevin. Pan expressed remorse as part of the proceeding, but for many, the punishment could not undo the loss. The sentence closed a legal chapter. It did not close the ache. Public filings and reporting indicate a sequence of prepared actions: the collision used to stop a car, the close-range shots, the immediate flight, and the possession of resources for escape. Law enforcement pointed to surveillance and financial records as pieces of that puzzle. The presence of cash and multiple communication devices on arrest suggested planning to avoid detection. Still, while those actions point to premeditation, they do not unambiguously explain motive. This case forced a sharp public question. How does a person of academic achievement appear in headlines for a violent crime? The notes that follow are not an attempt to psychologize the accused beyond what is publicly reported. Rather, they are an observation. Intelligence, training, or institutional membership do not insulate one from taking catastrophic actions. Reporters and commentators noted the seeming paradox. An accomplished researcher alleged to have orchestrated a brutal homicide. For Kevin's family, university headlines and legal filings were a poor substitute for their son. Public coverage contains lists of facts, service record, degrees, dates. It can't show a father's memory of a laugh, a mother's recollection of quiet generosity. At sentencing, family members described the human texture of the life that was lost. Those testimonies, recorded in court or read aloud, are part of the public ledger now, and they are the beating center of what remains after conviction. Even with an arrest and a guilty plea, some questions remain open. Why exactly did Pan decide to act on that February night? What were the internal calculations that led from a collision to lethal violence? Some answers are sealed in plea deals and sealed evidence. Others remain in the minds of the perpetrator and in the private communications that investigators may have been able to review, but which the public cannot. For many watching, that lack of full explanation is the hardest part. The successful arrest rested on routine but painstaking police work, tracking small movements through surveillance, tracing cash and card use, linking partial license plates and vehicle descriptions, and following the digital trail left by phones and SIM cards. Those everyday law enforcement techniques, often invisible in dramatic retellings, were decisive. The presence of multiple devices and the passport at arrest told agents that the suspect was not merely hiding. He was prepared to disappear. When high-profile crimes involve students or researchers, the media faces an ethical tightrope. Public interest collides with privacy and the duty to avoid inflaming suspicion without facts. Reporters must balance the need to inform with the prospect of amplifying unverified claims. In this case, outlets reported on the evident connections and the public filings while adhering to editorial standards that recognize the limits of unproven motive. On campus and in the neighborhood where the shooting occurred, life moved forward, but the memory of the night remained. Vigils, memorials, and community gatherings marked grief and solidarity. Those who knew Kevin sought ways to honor him. In classrooms and in the halls of universities often defined by debate and research, students and staff paused to ask, how do we preserve safety and community while treating each other with dignity? Years after the shooting, the case is often referenced in discussions about obsession, violence, and the fragility of ordinary nights. The guilty plea closed the courtroom chapter, but the public record, press accounts, court filings, and the plea remain the main lenses through which we can understand what happened. For those who seek answers, those documents are the closest thing to an unvarnished account. In pleading guilty, the defendant admitted commission of the crime as defined in the charge. Plea documents enumerated certain actions and allowed prosecutors to avoid the uncertainty of a jury trial. For the victim's family, the plea offered a form of closure, public acknowledgement of responsibility. For the legal system, it conserved resources and ensured a multi-decade sentence. But pleas also channel certain evidence away from public cross-examination, leaving unanswered questions about the psychological drivers at play. Every fact, the collision, the license plate fragment, the cash, forms a thread in a larger narrative. For investigators, those details produce leads. For newsrooms, they anchor reporting. For families, they are harsh markers on a timeline that rewrites ordinary evenings into a ledger of loss. Paying attention to the granular is not morbid. It is how justice systems assess culpability and how communities learn from events that otherwise feel inexplicable. This case underscores three truths. 1. Violence can appear in unexpected places. 2. Connections we think are private, social media, old classmates, online registers, can become public evidence. And 3. The law is painstaking. It collects tiny fragments in order to answer big questions. For communities and institutions, the lesson is to take preventative safety seriously while recognizing the limits of foresight. Slightly softer, direct-to-camera style while still voiceover. If you're watching this on YouTube and this story has gripped you, hit subscribe now and leave a comment below. In the thread, tell us what you think the missing piece is: obsession, jealousy, or something else. We'll read the top comments in our follow-up deep dive. If you want the court documents and a source list we used, click the link in the description. The system concluded with a sentence: 35 years behind bars. That punishment represents society's formal condemnation of the act. For some, the length of the sentence may never feel commensurate with a life lost. For others, it is a measure of accountability. Neither fully addresses the grief, the lost future, or the quiet rituals, birthdays, graduations, simple conversations that will never occur. February 6, 2021. Kevin left his fiance's apartment and was shot after a minor collision. Investigators identified a suspect, Qinxuan Pan. A 3-month manhunt followed. May 14, 2021. Arrest in Montgomery, Alabama with cash, phones, and a passport. February 29, 2024. Guilty plea, April 2024. 35-year sentence. Those are the hard facts we can say with public confidence. Between those dates lie the human moments, pain, anger, investigation, and legal negotiation that this story holds. To remember, Kevin is to remember the small acts, the service he rendered, the ways he loved, the promise of a future that was interrupted. Memorials and classrooms bear his name in spirit. Mourners carry his memory forward. The arc of any single life is complex, and this one, tragically shortened, reminds us that it is always the private textures that grief preserves. The concluding thought: what justice delivered versus what grief will carry forever. Cases like this force a reckoning with uncomfortable truths. They remind us that brilliance and danger can exist in the same biography, that small, everyday moments, a car door open, a step on pavement, can become the hinge of someone's life, and that justice, while necessary, cannot restore the lost morning, the unwritten letter, the smile that will not return. We close this episode not with answers that soothe, but with a reminder to guard our communities, to speak honestly about harm, and to hold memory steady. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll see you next time.